And now I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Working Virtual, Is Your Organization CyberSAFE? I'm going to hand things over to our featured presenter today. He is the president of Cert Nexus, Jeff Felice. Jeff, you now have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayan. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today and taking the time out of your day to learn about cyber safety and cyber awareness for end users and really for everyone throughout the organization. And that's really going to be the focus of our presentation today. So the question is, are you cyber safe? And we're going to hope to answer that throughout the presentation today. So again, my name is Jeff Felice. I serve as the president of Cert Nexus. If you're not familiar with Cert Nexus, we're a global certification body for vendor-neutral emerging technologies for both business and technical professionals. That includes around data-driven technologies such as cybersecurity to secure data, artificial intelligence, data science, and IoT as well. We work with organizations across the world, including through our partnerships with New Horizons. So you can see exam candidates for our technical certifications, as well as our micro-credentials for our business level certifications or credentials are come again from all over the world, over 50 countries, and from across all types of industry, and also companies of all sizes as well. So what will we learn today? We're going to really focus in on two areas. First, why it's so important for end users to identify the need for security, how to secure their devices and data, and how to learn to safely navigate the ever more connected world. And then we're going to learn about the impact, so how organizations can implement cyber awareness programs and how that could potentially reduce incidents by up to 70%. So we're going to start with a poll. What we're going to attempt to do is throughout today is both from an engagement perspective, but also from a learning perspective, is to help identify some areas of cybersecurity or potential vulnerabilities or threat vectors that from a social engineering perspective. So our first poll is going to start here.
All right, I just put the poll up, Jeff, for everyone. So if everyone can take a few seconds here just to answer Jeff's quick poll, well, I'll close this in a few seconds.
And again, for those taking the poll, it's which of the following attack types commonly targets a specific organization? Is it whaling, phishing, spearfishing, or impersonation?
All right, I just closed the poll, and with an overwhelming 67%, everyone said spearfishing.
And that's correct. Spearfishing is the technique that a bad actor or cyber criminal would use to target a specific organization. And often what they will do is they'll target an individual, and they've identified that individual as potentially being vulnerable. So instead of sending out, as we'll learn about, phishing emails to the entire organization, they'll identify someone that's either vulnerable from a social engineering observation or because of their placement within the organization. So potentially someone in finance who has access to banking logins, or potentially someone that has access to data because of the value of data today. So again, it's having those targeted attacks. Great, thanks everyone for participating. So I'm going to start with a startling fact. So every 39 seconds, there's a cyber attack. So the University of Maryland completed a study, and based on the number of attacks, the reported attacks, and obviously dividing that over the course of the year, they've determined that an attack takes it occurs every 39 seconds. It really is a startling statistic. The fact is that this number is only going to decrease. Attacks are going to be becoming more common and more pervasive. So, we do need to prepare ourselves, and as we'll learn today, it's not just the responsibility of IT, it's a responsibility of all of us. And what we've seen is this actually has accelerated. The fact is that many companies, due to the global pandemic, have moved virtually overnight without the opportunity to safely prepare end users for remote work. So over time, and this has occurred over the last handful of months, IT and security teams have reconfigured systems and related policies to better protect our infrastructure and data, but they still are struggling with a limited oversight over these end user environments. I'm sitting here in my home office today, and I have a company issued laptop, but I'm connected to my Wi-Fi. And it's now my IT team has very little, if any, control over my ability for me to connect to my Wi-Fi with my work computer, other than potentially maybe requiring VPN, which in this case they don't. But that also extends, as we'll see, to our mobile devices and beyond. And the fact is with ransomware attacks on the rise and phishing a continued threat, we really start to see that businesses of all sizes are being impacted by these social engineering techniques aimed at end users, and really that we need to increase our awareness and our ability to protect not only our end users from attack, but often, again, they're the gateway to what the cybercriminal wants, which is data or money, and again, gaining further access to our infrastructure. The fact is that a single email can lead to a multi-million-dollar breach. As we can see from this Companywide study, the cost of data breach report, the cost is going up, and the majority of those breaches, or near the majority, is because are due to human errors and system glitches. And those human errors, again, are people knowingly or unknowingly doing something. It's opening an email, it's downloading a file, it's clicking on a website link. It's doing some basic things that we do throughout the course of our day, but in some cases, again, it takes one wrong click to essentially allow for an intruder into our environment. That environment could be our local computer, it could be our network, our local area network, it could be into potentially our cloud infrastructure. The fact is that, again, they're using an end user as a door to access, again, data, and data being essentially the currency in which they're going to extract money or information from a business. And so our biggest threats to even small businesses are today ransomware and phishing attacks. You think about a small business, I'll relay a story. Last year within the US, there was 400 dentist offices on a given day that fell prey to a ransomware attack. And then for those who aren't familiar with ransomware, we'll define a little bit later, but it's essentially where someone locks your system so you're not unable to access any information in your system, and until you pay money to release to the cybercriminal, and then they'll allow you to regain access. And the fact is that last year there was 400 dentist offices, think of small businesses, who in a single day were all impacted by this ransomware. And it was sent out to many more, but 400 were impacted, and each one paid $5,000. Now, $5,000 is a lot of money. It probably didn't lead to the closure of any of those dentist offices. But the fact is, you think from a cybercriminal standpoint, they were able to extract $2 million across those 400 businesses in a single day. So obviously, there's a great incentive to cybercriminals to target small businesses, because, again, extracting hundreds or thousands of dollars from a single business typically will allow that business to continue, and they're willing to pay it, and they typically have fewer protections in place, but it gives the cybercriminal, again, across the number of businesses, a large payout all day. And the challenge we have is that most common security threats really are not understood by end users. So if we look at the survey that was just completed by Proofpoint, that was just published in the last month, only 61% of individuals were able to correctly identify phishing in a multiple choice question. So you think about it, 6 out of 10 people were able to identify phishing, the 4 out of 10 were not. And again, it takes one person to click on, again, the wrong link, open the wrong email, or download a file. only 31% were able to identify ransomware. And again, I just relayed a ransomware focused story, and we'll talk more about that. But again, only a population to do that. Almost 1 out of 2 people admit to password reuse. And again, a lot of individuals are performing non-work activities on their work devices. And that's a commonality today in almost all industry, right? And especially now that we're in these work from home environments where our work computers double as also our home computers in many cases. And not that that's inherently a bad thing, but we need to have to understand that and what the inherent risks are associated with that as well. So we're going to just jump into types of attacks to really understand them from the perspective of what is impacting, again, most broadly our organizations today are phishing attacks. And there's various types of phishing attacks, is one that we just covered in our poll, which was spearfishing. But what's more important is that phishing, and as well as you'll see ransomware and other types of these types of attacks, are really the base of them is social engineering. What these cyber criminals are doing is they're preying on, again, vulnerabilities within an organization, within a person, and what they're trying to do, again, is essentially make someone think that there's something that's important that they need to attend to. And again, that could be because it's coming from someone that's known to them or potentially unknown, but it seems to be important and they need to actually respond. So if you look at it, Verizon in the US, major telecom, has a data breach report, and 1/3 of all data breaches involved phishing. So you think about that, despite the best intentions of your technical team with firewalls, with virus scanning, with all the endpoint security and all the host of other software and hardware systems that they put in place, the fact is that that still doesn't protect someone from clicking on a link. And what's interesting is phishing overall was down in 2019. We did see it go up in 2020, at least in the first half of the year, much due to the COVID pandemic. But overall, the rates of it have really leveled off to some degree. And the reason for that, because the cyber criminals are becoming more targeted in their efforts. They're no longer just spraying and praying that someone will respond. Again, they're using more sophisticated social engineering techniques to target individuals that will have the greatest payout for them. And unfortunately, that again, most people, even though if people were able to identify what a phishing attack is, again, almost 4 out of 10 people still fell prey to them. The fact is, again, because they're becoming more sophisticated, it's harder to tell, is this email coming from my chief financial officer? Is it coming from a specific client or someone else in our ecosystem of, customer partners and peers and other employees, and really having the ability to discern whether that information is valid or not. And we'll talk ways to be able to do that, but it is becoming more increasingly difficult to do so. And I did speak to ransomware earlier, but again, this is where a network is encrypting. It's essentially malware delivered through malware. And what it does is, with ransomware, is it encrypts all the data typically in your system. If you keep a media, you can see this has hit hospitals recently, or healthcare systems. There's major healthcare systems dealing with this right now in the US. It's also hit universities where student data has been locked. Again, across small businesses, it's one of the major forms of attacks aimed at small businesses, as well as large companies as well. And again, typically one of two things has to happen. Either organizations have to figure a way to unlock that data, which is again becoming more increasingly difficult to do, and two is pay money to have their data returned. And unfortunately, it's the latter option, which is most often utilized, which again only further encourages these cyber criminals. And what is most concerning is that ransomware is becoming one of the most common social engineering tactics for cyber criminals. And in fact, it's becoming more common now than payment card theft. So there's more ransomware attacks, successful attacks, than there are attacks with debit and credit cards and other types of financial data. So let's take a breath here and pause. Right, there is the fact is that in normal times these are all threats, and we understand them, and in our most challenging times, we still fall prey to some of them as we're socially engineered and unfortunately impact our organization. What I find really disheartening, to be honest, is that cyber criminals typically advantage of, again, vulnerabilities. And one of the greatest vulnerabilities we have right now is the global pandemic of COVID-19. And again, cyber criminals are using this to, again, prey on people's fears, their concerns, their hopes in some cases. And what they have done is they're leveraging, again, this crisis to their benefit. Again, whether it's phishing, ransomware, setting up websites that could have disinformation, selling potential treatments that are not actually have been studied or tested, a host of things that they're doing. And you can see some of the statistics here. Google in 1 week blocked more than 18 million COVID-19 phishing emails in a single week. This was early on. More than 240 million spam messages on a daily basis. You think about that, 250 million spam messages on a daily basis they're blocking. And the fact is again, a lot of these criminals, again, are being very sophisticated and disguising themselves as legal businesses. So many of them have purchased domains, set up websites, have e-commerce available where they're either selling faulty products or not delivering on the products that they're selling, or just using that to be able to extract data from individuals to be able to use it in other nefarious ways. So again, we need to always be vigilant, but really the vigilance during a period like as of now, such as COVID. For those that are based in the U.S., it's again a greater sensitivity right now. We're going into an election. So not only do we have to deal with the pandemic, but we also the ability, or I wouldn't say ability, but the focus of criminals to again, whether provide misinformation or also potentially to extract information from you that you're not otherwise would not be willing to give up because of again, a heightened awareness around a singular issue. So we're going to move into our second poll now. This poll, again, we're interspersing some information throughout. So this poll is our second question, which is, which of the following attack types uses phone calls or voice messages? Is it smishing, vishing, spearfishing, or phishing?
All right, everyone, I just launched the poll. If you could take a few seconds here to answer, that would be great. All right, I'm getting ready to close the polls here. And we have 54% saying vishing is the answer, followed closely by smishing.
Great. We'll learn about smishing a little bit later, but the correct answer is vishing. So when someone attempts to call your phone or leave a voicemail and requests you to call back, again, that is again, when in use of social engineering, is called vishing. And unfortunately, again, it's becoming more sophisticated, right? It's typically calling people when they are at their busiest times or at their most vulnerable. And again, leveraging social issues or other current events where people may have expressed in their Facebook post or on a Twitter feed or an Instagram may have shared some information. And again, someone will take that information, find your phone number, and leverage that. So if let's say you want to save the whales and you've posted that on Instagram, then all of a sudden you get a phone call from Save the Whales program that's looking for you to provide money. Again, and as we'll learn, in all those instances, you always want to do everything outbound, not respond to inbound inquiries. Great job, everyone. Okay, move on to the next thing. So the fact is, this is how we think of cybersecurity, right? And much of this is through the portrayal of movies and television, where there's typically a guy in a hoodie that's essentially typing faster than most of us can type, and really thinking of this sophisticated dark world. And it is a dark world, but there's varying levels of sophistication. In fact, many cyber attacks aren't very sophisticated. Again, it's through observation, as I just talked about. I made a post on Instagram. Someone looks at that post and finds my phone number or my email and takes advantage of that information. So we really think about it as being this, kind of insular cyber criminal world where essentially there's we can't see into it, and then they can see what everything we're doing. And there is a lot of information out there, and they can see much of what we're doing, but there are ways to protect ourselves. And really how we should think of cybersecurity is how we interact with the world. For those who have yet to watch it, if you watch Social Dilemma on Netflix, if you have Netflix available to you, I'd highly recommend it. But what you'll see is the fact is that the data that we generate in our daily lives accumulates. And that's both in our personal lives, but also our work lives as well. And so what we need to think about is, as we're interacting with technology, is that it's this very distributed ecosystem in which we're working in. And within this ecosystem, we're generating data, and that data may be of use and for a business in a very positive manner, but it also may be used for harm. So we have to think about every interaction we have is, again, whether it's in our work environment or our personal lives, is this data that I want to share? And with whom should this data be shared? And when I share this data with these individuals, what is their intent in using it? And again, we won't get into all the data privacy, various data privacy regulations and so forth, but from an industry perspective, you have to think about it is that, listen, we're in this highly distributed world. Data is the currency of the 21st century. And there's great value in that, and I need to be able to protect that on behalf of myself as an individual, but also my organization. And that really extends the responsibility for cybersecurity to individuals. It's not just a tech concern any longer. In fact, if you think about it from an organizational perspective, shareholders, boards, et cetera, now expect even the C-suite to have as much understanding about their ability to secure their data, secure their infrastructure, as they do for financial performance. So it starts at the highest levels, and it goes to throughout the organization. So again, your IT team, as we'll learn, is going to participate in the process, or your security team is going to participate in the process. And again, they're going to bring expertise to it that you cannot. But as individuals, you need to be participating. So we need to be able to identify what is phishing, right? How is that different than smishing? What are some common techniques that within phishing that people are going to use? How they may take advantage of us? Understanding that, again, leveraging our data, our essentially digital footprint out in the world to socially engineer us. And the way we want to think about it is that our IT and security teams, the cybersecurity teams, are really providing us with security, and we are providing for our own safety. I liken this to, if you think about a force, right? A police force is providing our security, right? They're the individuals that should be out there ensuring the safety of our streets, of our environment, and working for the constituents of that specific area. And so they're providing that security. You could extend that out, and let's use a more abstract or a more antiquated analogy, where think about if you have a kingdom and there's knights, and those knights are guarding the castle, right? So you have a castle, you have a moat around the castle, and you have knights. And that's pretty much what our cybersecurity teams are doing, right? They're essentially establishing through hardware, software, and processes, developing that moat and those castle walls. And then they're the individuals, the knights, if you'd like, that are essentially responsible for the maintenance of those walls and that moat, and if anyone tries to invade across those, right? So those are going to be things that we're going to be familiar with, like firewalls or virus scanning or endpoint protection, anti-phishing software applications, etc. That's what. But within that kingdom, we have to provide for our own safety, right? So we shouldn't potentially walk in a dark alley at night, right? Not that we shouldn't be able to do that, but there's a likelihood that harm may be caused to our person if we do so. So we have to think about, is it really safe for me to do that? And that's the same thing in our IT or technical world. We're going to have individuals on our cybersecurity and IT teams that are going to help us by securing our organization and its infrastructure and data, or at least attempting to do so through hardware and software solutions and processes. But we also need to participate. We need to understand that, you know what, the fact is that someone may try to socially engineer me. That may be through an email. It may be through my smartphone. It may be actually that someone is trailing me into a facility and I'm swiping to get into the facility. They're carrying a box like they're delivering something and I let them into the facility, right? So there's ways that we can be socially engineered both digitally and physically that allow people access to our infrastructure and data. So we have to think about the combination of the two. It is the continued responsibility of our security and IT teams to provide security, but we need to provide safety, which ensures the safety of ourselves, our colleagues, and helps our IT and security teams. So that brings us to our third poll of the day, which is, which of the following attack types uses text messaging? Is this whaling, vishing, spearfishing, or smishing?
All right, everyone, I just launched that poll. If you can answer, I'll close it in a few seconds here. All right. Overwhelming answer is smishing.
That is correct. It is smishing. So if you're receiving a text message where someone, again, is attempting to get you to click on a link or asking for personal information, that is called smishing. So again, and again, this is, you know, this is not intended to be a quiz. No one's getting graded on this, but really to be informative and to understand, listen, there are these various types of ways that people are trying to extract information from us in ways that we normally communicate. So smishing is the correct answer. So what's the cost? There is a cost to these types of attacks or cyber incidents. And really, again, over a third and as much as a half of this is a result of poor end user preparation. In fact, IBM, you can see the cost of a data breach. They estimate that on average, it costs almost $4 million for an organization. Now, again, some organizations like those dentist offices were paying $5,000, but there's other organizations paying tens of millions or more for the cost of a breach. And the cost of a breach could be, again, it could be ransomware. It could be an impact to the brand. It could be the inability to deliver products or services. There's a multitude of ways an organization can be impacted. And again, we again think about the theater, about the movies and television, and we see these sophisticated attacks where people are hijacking essentially other computers, etc., through these really sophisticated technical techniques. And again, not that doesn't happen, and that's not really the focus of today. But more often than not, it's because they've accessed an individual, and again, that individual is the doorway into that organization. So what should we do to become prepared? There's really 3 areas of focus. There's product, process, and people. So from a product standpoint, we've spoken a little bit to this in the prior slides, is there's many hardware and software solutions, right? So this is, again, all of those various endpoint solutions that help from a security standpoint. It's also, again, virus scan, firewalls, phishing applications, detection applications. It also now extends out to the Internet of Things and our ability to secure essentially devices as well. There's processes. Most organizations will have some standard processes. Even the small and medium-sized businesses, if they don't have them, need to think about employing these. Again, some of them are going to be due to regulations. So think about data privacy with GDPR out of the EU or California with its data privacy laws. But all others are going to be best practices within the organization, again, that help prevent the likelihood of a cyber incident from occurring. And then finally, it's people, right? So we need to be providing annual training for all employees. Again, this isn't just for the security team or IT team, but anyone that has access to a device that is connected to the network. And that, again, could extend beyond employees to include contractors, partners, or any individual, again, that would potentially have access to your network, your data, or other information that, again, with someone, again, a nefarious actor would want to have access to. You can also practice, right? Practice, it never makes perfect, but it improves the overall situation. And in this case, having phishing simulations. So whatever the frequency is, sending out a phishing email to see if people click on it. And if they do click on it, give them the opportunity to understand why it was a phishing email and to learn more about phishing and the types of phishing emails so they don't click on that in the future. And most importantly is creating a culture of cyber safety. Again, we can lean on our security teams and our IT teams. And again, they have their jobs to do, which is to protect us from all types of attacks, but specifically those that are, again, come through the means of, from a technical standpoint, that aren't just social engineering. But we need to take the responsibility ourselves as well. We're participating in this process. We're, again, like not walking down that, the dark alley at 2 a.m. in the morning. We should look to see who, I don't know who this user is, or I do know who this user is, but they haven't sent me an email like this before. Let me hover over their name to see what the email address is. Oh, it's something I don't recognize. That is a phishing email. So taking the necessary steps, slowing down in our day to make sure we're doing the right things to help protect our organization. And talking about cyber awareness and compliance from a knowledge perspective, what we attempt to do here is really start by testing the knowledge to establish a baseline. We're doing some polling here today, and it's more informal, but we can see not 100% of people are getting all the questions correct. That's not a bad thing. That's the state that most organizations are in today. But we use that to inform what type of training do we need, how frequently we need it, and who needs it. So we should start by training, again, all employees and contractors, again, or anyone who has access to our systems. We then need to retest that knowledge, and then we need to remediate as necessary, right? So maybe on an annual basis, everyone gets it, but throughout the year, there's some people that, again, may have a greater need for more training and support to identify various types of techniques. And the fact is, we need to repeat these steps at least on an annual basis. And then most importantly is we don't ever stop. The fact is when you put your guard down, that's when the greatest opportunity, again, that someone could attack your business. And again, you think about it, cyber criminals are looking for that opportune moment, right? They're looking for that person with the greatest vulnerability, or that organization with the greatest vulnerability. And unfortunately, they do that most often when, you know, we're most distracted. And so we need to be, again, vigilant at all times. And again, it helps to have training and assessment to do that. So when in question, what to do? So stop, right? So if I received an email, it came from my CEO has never emailed me before, I should ask, first stop and say, okay, this is not a normal condition. Then I should think about it. What are the conditions of the situation? Why would my CEO be emailing me? Did I just celebrate my 15th anniversary with the company? Or is this just an email that came out of the blue and it was unexpected and it's not something my CEO would do? And then you need to act. Once you've identified, maybe I've looked at it and it is my 15th year anniversary. I've hovered over my CEO's name. I see his email. It's coming from cert@certnexus.com. So I'm comfortable opening it and I go ahead and open it. Or if it's not my 15th year anniversary and I hover over the email and it's coming from a URL that's not within my company's domain, I really should then go on to inform the appropriate persons in our organization so they can address that issue. We're going to do our fourth poll at this time. And the poll is, which of the following attacks type is defined as malicious software that infects a computer and restricts users' access to it until a ransom is paid to unlock it? Phishing, malware, ransomware, or tailgating?
All right, I just set the poll up. Give folks a few more seconds here to vote. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. And we had an overwhelming, over 98% said ransomware.
Fabulous. So people have been listening. Thank you so much. It is ransomware, right? So ransomware can be delivered through malware, but ransomware is where we essentially lock a computing and typically our access to data until someone has paid a ransom to unlock it. Great job, everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit about an offering that's available through New Horizons, CyberSAFE. CyberSAFE is a end user awareness training that can be offered as instructor-led, virtual instructor-led, or self-paced as well. It's typically delivered in 1 hour or 4 hour virtually instructor-led or 1 hour e-learning. It does include a credentialing assessment. For those who do pass that assessment, you do receive a badge. That badge is available to post on LinkedIn or your other social media. And again, this is for everyone in your organization. Your IT and security teams still should take it. Again, it should be everyone in the organization. And again, typically should be taken on an annualized basis, again, for compliance purposes. And you can see the knowledge that's assessed. So we do talk about compliance. Why is it necessary to have cybersecurity regulations, and how do we comply with them? We talk about social engineering. So we've been talking about some of those techniques today, the various phishing types of techniques. We talk about how to protect both your device and data, right? So we talk about the various types of authentication, what a strong password looks like, and how to protect your data. Whether it's on your device, being in other cloud environments as well. And then we do talk about that in your online security. So we talk about how to safely use email, how to browse the web, and how to utilize social media as well in safe and secure manners. Again, each of those topics, as you dive deep into them, could be, full day classes in themselves, especially as you talk about data privacy. But we want to give, again, the awareness so people are able to stop, right? And say, is this, again, a normal condition? Is it something I'm typically not, I won't say subjected to, but availed to? If not, how do I address that? And that's really what we're attempting to try to do through CyberSAFE. And what are the benefits of a program like as a company-wide compliance program? Studies have shown it's been able to reduce incidents up to 70%. Again, nothing's foolproof. There's always going to be, again, sophisticated attacks. But think about it from an organizational perspective. If you can reduce potential incidents by up to 70%, that's a huge benefit to an organization. And again, for those organizations that have cybersecurity insurance, it's a thing for those who don't know about it. But if you do have it, some cyber insurance providers are allowing for organizations to reduce their premiums, much like you would take a safe driving course to reduce your auto insurance. It's the same with cyber insurance as well. And we're on to our last poll of the day, which is, what steps can you take to help ensure that your organization is cyber safe? Use strong passwords, stop, think, act, take training at least once a year, or create or participate in a cyber safe culture.
All right, I launched the poll and give everyone a few seconds here. I did add, Jeff, to one of the answers is all of the above. So just in case anyone wants to choose that answer, they can do that as well.
Oh, thank you. Yep, thank you very much.
All right. Well, this one, I just closed the poll. That was a pretty easy one, Jeff. 100% of everyone said all of the above.
Great, thanks, Maya. And that is the correct answer. It is all of the above, right? We should be taking all these actions, right? Starting with the use of strong passwords, that stop, think, act, right? If it doesn't feel right, it may not be right, and it's the best thing to do. Just first stop. Again, continue to inform ourselves. The fact is, these techniques continue to evolve, right? Smishing wasn't much of a thing several years ago, and it is more so today and becoming a more common practice, as is phishing. And then really, again, participating in a culture of cybersecurity and cyber safety, right? Taking the responsibility ourselves as individuals to participate, ensure the safety of ourselves as individuals and as employees of an organization as well. Great. Mayan, do you want to?
Yes, thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, please take a moment to type them in right now in the questions box, and we'll just get to them in a few minutes. Again, like I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in any of the material that was presented, that Jeff presented, or if you have questions in general of what's available to you in terms of cybersecurity, please contact your local center for more information. You can log on to newhorizons.com and do a quick zip code search to find the center that's nearest you. Also, just to let you know, New Horizons has been delivering online courses since 2001, and that's almost, that's pretty impressive. And our facilitators are trained to engage our learners and also encourage class participation here. As an example, our leadership classes, we have post-class resources that help encourage long-term growth and continuous learning, even long after the class. So we are very well versed online in class, and we work really closely with our friends here at Cert Nexus as well when it comes to cybersecurity training. Let's see here, Jeff. I know we have a few more questions coming in. And just to let everyone know, Jeff has 2 other sessions throughout the month of October for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. He has a session that's on the 8th, if I'm not mistaken, and the 15th. So please, if you haven't already, sign up. And Jeff has some more cybersecurity knowledge he'll be sharing with everyone on those 2 sessions. All right. I'm just going to jump into questions now. We have a couple here that came in. So the first one, Jeff, is how safe are plug-and-play devices? For example, the person said that they purchased a wireless mouse keyboard from Amazon for her work computer. These devices are made in China and involve a USB type connector that communicates with the computer itself. Is there any potential that these plugs could be mining data from the computer or infecting the system with viruses?
Yeah, great question. The likelihood of that is small, right? Especially from known brands. The fact is we're in a global supply chain, so our parts of our computers, if not all of them, come from all places across the world. So the fact is for those businesses, for continuity perspective, need to be doing things that are in compliance with global expectations or business expectations. So the likelihood is small from a manufacturing perspective that if something's delivered to you, that it'd be mining data. With that said, could it happen? It could happen. And as we come in again and have this ever more connected world, we have to think about all the things that connect to our computer. I was fortunate that I moved into a new home earlier this year, and I now have a doorbell that's connected to the internet. I have all of our HVAC cooling and heating system is connected to the internet. Our stove, our oven is connected to the internet. And so you think about it, those now also become points of vulnerability as well. So anything that you connect to your computer or to your network does become a point of vulnerability. So at any point, if you've configured those items, and it requires a password, a username and password, you should change those. You should also ensure that anything's connected to your Wi-Fi is a known device to you. And as well as anything that you plug into your computer. You should always know where the source of that item came from, that it came from a trusted resource. And if you're unsure, there are ways that you can work with your security and IT teams to determine whether that is, if thumb drive or whatever it may be, whether it contains any type of malware or other types of ways that may, again, subject you to an incident. So long story short is that always question it, and always make sure that you're taking the necessary steps to secure it.
Great. Now, I know you talked a little bit about, when it comes to emails and checking the domains and things like that when you receive it. But this person said she has a pretty common name. Is it still risky to write back to an unknown sender of an email saying that they're writing to the wrong person?
Yeah, it is. There is a risk. Essentially, my approach is that I never respond to an email, to a text message, or to a voicemail, or any type of phone call where I don't know the person directly, or somehow, and even if I am, if I know the person and they're typically asking for information, what I most often do is I will start a new email. I will call them. I will send a text message to someone. It's really, you should think about it as inbound versus outbound. Inbound, anything inbound is potentially exposing you. If you originate in outbound communication, it's safer. So if someone does email you inadvertently, I know we all want to be polite and helpful, but it's also likely that what they're going to do is they're going to start, again, they could be just collecting more data. That could be just an email to say, hey, is this Jeff's Felice correct email? If so, now I have his correct email. Now, again, I'm essentially, again, I've compiled data on Jeff Felice. I now have his email, I have his LinkedIn, I have his Twitter feed, I have all these items, again, which allows them to better social engineer a potential future attack.
Great. Now, we have another question here. It says, can you please explain what a firewall is and does in a way that a non-IT person would understand? I know that's reaching out of our topic here, but I know firewalls are there to help set up some security parameters.
Yeah, a firewall, I guess the best non-technical way to explain it is you think about it, it's like a security gate, right? And only people, in a security gate, you only allow people that are approved to gain entry to do so. Let's say they have a swipe card, right? Or not even a swipe card, but they have a badge that they show to the security personnel. A firewall is the same way. A firewall is allowing traffic to come into your network and to go and to leave it. And so often, and this is the most simplistic, some of the most simplistic tasks, but they'll say, hey, listen, we don't want people to be able to go to these websites, and we don't allow traffic from these or that into our network either. So what it does is it's a first layer of protection. And again, I'm oversimplifying, but it's almost that security gate. Who can come in and who can go out? And that, therefore, helping to protect our organization at a very basic level, from potential intrusions, as well as us doing things, sending information out that should not go out as well.
Great. Well, you did such a great job in your presentation. Those were the questions we had today. With that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And don't forget to to register for not only Jeff's 2 other sessions coming up in the next couple weeks, but just any other cybersecurity webinars that we have going on for the month of October. Thank you, Jeff, as always, for presenting on behalf of New Horizons, and we look forward to your other 2 sessions in the upcoming weeks. With that being said, everyone, thank you again. You may now log off. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.